what if one vote could reveal something much bigger than popularity? What if, after all these years, one name still rises above everyone else? Not just once, but again and again. That name is BTS Jin. On August 20th, a new milestone arrived, and this time, it came with a title that sounds almost too fitting: Artist of the Generation. Jin has officially taken first place in Idolpick's special Artist of the Generation vote, receiving an incredible 199,795 votes. But the number itself is only the beginning. Because when you look at everything happening around Jin right now, this victory suddenly feels like another piece of a much larger story. For years, Jin has been known for his extraordinary visuals, his unmistakable voice, his humor, and that effortless charm that seems to appear whether he is standing on a massive stage or simply smiling at a camera. But there is another side to Jin that becomes impossible to ignore when you look at the numbers: consistency. And perhaps that is what makes this latest achievement so fascinating. The Idolpick Artist of the Generation vote was not simply another ordinary popularity poll. It was a vote designed to recognize an artist who represents an era. And when the final numbers were counted, Jin stood at the very top with 199,795 votes. For fans, that victory became even more meaningful because the reward was not something hidden away behind a screen. It became visible in the heart of Seoul. The first place reward was a major Luex advertisement displayed on a massive LED screen at Woncheonggyecheon Row in Jongno-gu, Seoul. And the advertisement was already broadcast on August 18th. Imagine walking through Seoul and suddenly seeing Jin's face towering above the city. A single fan vote had transformed into something physical, something thousands of people could actually see. But then comes the part that makes the story even more surprising. Because while Jin was being celebrated as the artist of the generation, he was simultaneously extending another astonishing record. In Idolpick's weekly voting for the second week of August, Jin collected 56,227 votes, and once again ranked first in the male idol category. And with that result, Jin extended his record to an unbelievable 65 consecutive weeks at number 1. Think about that for a moment. 65 weeks. Not 65 days. Not a few months. 65 consecutive weeks. Week after week, Jin continues to remain at the top, and that kind of consistency tells a different story from a single viral moment. A viral moment can happen overnight, but maintaining number 1 for 65 consecutive weeks requires something much harder to achieve. Continued support, continued interest, and a fandom that refuses to let the momentum disappear. And Jin's achievements did not stop there. In Idolpick's 186th LED screen support tally, Jin once again took first place, receiving a remarkable 105,600 picks. Because of that victory, another large-scale advertisement is scheduled to appear from August 27th through August 29th on a massive LED screen located across from Lotte Avenue Myeongdong in Junggu, Seoul. So within just a short period, Jin has managed to create multiple moments where his presence will literally light up some of Seoul's busiest locations. But perhaps the most exciting part of this story is that these achievements are happening at the same time as another major milestone in Jin's solo career. On August 18th, Jin's solo song, Don't Say You Love Me, officially surpassed 1 billion cumulative plays on Spotify. Yes, 1 billion. The title track from Jin's second solo mini-album, Echo, has now reached a level that only a small number of artists can experience. And for Jin, this is especially significant because Don't Say You Love Me has become his biggest streaming achievement since his solo debut. Think about the journey behind that number. 1 billion plays means 1 billion moments when someone, somewhere in the world, pressed play. 1 billion moments of hearing Jin's voice. 1 billion opportunities for a listener to connect with a song that began as part of his solo musical journey. And perhaps this is why the phrase artist of the generation feels so interesting when attached to Jin. Because it is not just about one award. It is not just about one poll, and it is certainly not just about one song. It is the combination of everything happening at once. First place in the Artist of the Generation vote with 199,795 votes. First place in weekly Idolpick voting with 56,227 votes. A record-breaking 65 consecutive weeks at number 1. First place in the 186th LED screen support tally with 105,600 picks. And now, more than 1 billion Spotify plays for Don't Say You Love Me. When you put all of those numbers together, a pattern begins to appear. Jin isn't simply experiencing isolated moments of success. He is building a continuing record of recognition, and perhaps that's what makes his story so compelling. There was a time when Jin was often introduced through his famous nickname, Worldwide Handsome. His appearance became legendary. His red carpet moments became unforgettable. His playful personality made millions of people smile. But over time, something else began to emerge. The singer, the performer, the solo artist, the man who could stand alone on stage and make an audience forget that he was once simply one member of a group. With Echo, Jin continued expanding that identity, and Don't Say You Love Me became one of the clearest examples of that evolution. Now with the song crossing 1 billion Spotify plays, the achievement provides another reminder that Jin's solo career has developed into something enormous in its own right. And then there is the emotional side of all this. For fans who have followed Jin for years, numbers like 1,999,795, 56,227, 105,600, and 1 billion are more than statistics. They represent time, they represent voting, streaming, waiting, supporting, celebrating, and doing it all over again. That is why seeing Jin's image appear on giant screens in Seoul can feel so meaningful. The votes don't simply disappear after the results are announced. They become something tangible, a giant screen, a public celebration, a reminder that thousands upon thousands of people came together and said the same thing. We choose Jin. And now Seoul gets to see that choice. But perhaps there is an even bigger question. Why does Jin continue to remain so powerful in these votes? The answer may be found in something much simpler than statistics: connection. Jin has always possessed a rare ability to make people feel close to him. He can command an enormous stadium with his voice, yet his personality often feels remarkably warm and familiar. He can appear impossibly elegant one moment and completely playful the next. He can be a global superstar and still create moments that feel intimate. That combination is difficult to manufacture, and perhaps that is why his popularity has remained so remarkably durable. Because trends change, styles change, charts change, but emotional connection can last, and Jin's latest achievements suggest that connection is still incredibly strong. So, when the giant Luke screen appeared in Seoul celebrating Jin as the artist of the generation, it was more than an advertisement. It was almost like a visual snapshot of where Jin stands right now. A global solo artist, a record-breaking vocalist, a beloved member of BTS, and an artist whose supporters continue to place him at the top, week after week. The most remarkable part, this story is still moving. Another giant LED advertisement is scheduled for August 27 to 29. Don't Say You Love Me has just crossed 1 billion Spotify plays, and Jin has now extended his Idolpick weekly winning streak to 65 consecutive weeks. So perhaps the real question isn't whether Jin can reach another milestone. At this point, the more interesting question might be, what milestone will Jin break next? Because if the past few weeks are any indication, we may not have to wait very long to find out. One thing is certain, the title Artist of the Generation may have started as the name of a poll, but for Jin, it is becoming something much more powerful. A reflection of an artist whose influence continues to grow, whose music continues to travel across the world, and whose name continues to appear at the top long after the moment many people expected the spotlight to move on. And as another giant screen prepares to light up Seoul with Jin's image, one message is becoming impossible to miss. Jin isn't simply looking back at his achievements. He is still writing the next chapter.